understanding really what transgenderism is in the whole process, and you talk about the journey. So I think it's important to talk about that journey, step by step, and with it, I want to talk about, we a lot of times we talk about socially transitioning, medically transitioning, the whole process defined in two terms, but obviously it's not just a two-step process there. So I was wondering if we can walk through from the very beginning of you start to feel like you're the wrong gender to you're fully transitioned. Maybe you don't want to go the medical route, but maybe you do. So what each step is, what are the legalities of it, how young can you do that step, and what's the cost in that step, how much can insurance pay for, how much do you have to pay for out of pocket, what does that step feel like to go through? Because that's a lot of times forgotten in our activism is, what does it feel like to go through that? Like, what does it feel like to be dead named? What does it feel like? And how difficult is it? And finally, how long does that process take? So I know there's a lot in there, but step by step, step one, what is that first?
Well, I had got that's a great multi-tiered question. So I will start from the beginning. Again, when I was a child, knowing uh, what I liked, what I saw in front of me, as I grew older, uh, admiring the women in my actual life, my two grandmothers, my mother, uh, other strong women that I'd seen on television, back in the day. I was certainly growing up through the the very infancy of the women's lib movement, so I admired those strong women, and I really felt their pain. It's like, and I related, to them. Um, so knowing that about myself, I would say, okay, I'm kind of on the path to womanhood here because, I don't like doing the things that my brothers do. They go hunting, they go fishing, and those things, that they like to do, that's fine. I just like to stay back in the kitchen, learn how to cook a meal, keep the home nice and spick and span, run the vacuum, wear an apron, whatever the case may be. It is an evolution. Again, I'll use that phrase quite a bit throughout this whole talk. As I got older, um, the epiphanies that I had in my lifetime that were the telltale sign that this is valid, folks. And I'll just briefly say that my second epiphany in my lifetime, when off camera we talked a little bit about my first epiphany as a child, and seeing my neighbor's older brother. My second epiphany came when I was in the Air Force, a young man of 19, and going to my first gay bar. And um, it's a song from my era, guys. It was by the Kinks, and it was called Lola. And this rolled out for me exactly. She came up to me and she asked me to dance, beautiful woman. And I'm in a gay bar and I'm 19 and I'm at the height of my hormones just raging and whatnot. The sexuality is oozing or whatever. I thought to myself, wow, look at me go. I come here and I end up with this beautiful woman. Well, 5 dances into it, into the whole meeting process. I look at my friend who's tending bar, who invited me to the gay bar to start with. He's from Pottsville, came down to Hampton, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, actually, to get a summer job and hang out at the beach with me. And I saw him. He told me later on that that woman used to be a man. I'm like, it could happen. It became a truth to me. So it is it's a rolling out of many things throughout life where you start to put yourself together at this point, going, all right, let's practice being the gender that I'm obviously excited about being. So as a young person, I without the benefit of YouTube and the many trans influencers that are out there that we literally watched evolve before our eyes. we didn't have that. So this was my YouTube, influencer moment, in 1982. So that was a different experience than what it was when I moved out to Southern California and started hitting the West Hollywood scene and developing to a more mature version of Mikaela. Knowing that I'm balancing, it's a very delicate balance, folks. I really had to play two roles. One was the business person who went out and, drummed up business for the company that I worked for, helped to start up out in Southern California. And then softening it up at night, heading out on the nights that I didn't have my children to worry about or to watch or to, take somewhere, which, I was a very active parent. I had my moments where I was, finding Mikaela, refining her. What clothes does she like to wear? Growing out the hair, as a matter of fact. And I grew it quite long in my years, even as a sales rep for an aerospace company out in Southern California. It didn't, nobody really, batted an eyelash at that, So I got to develop along the way, each level being a different challenge, and it was a whole different set of challenges as I came back after 20 plus years of being away, coming back to Schuylkill County and evolving even further as a more mature person, a more mature woman. It's like not over dressing, not over emphasizing. It's like at my age, I'm not gonna go to work in a mini skirt and 6-inch, stiletto heels. I'm reeling it back to little kitten heels and a conservative, nice suit or whatever the case may be. And I would say it's a delicate balance along the way when you're expressing your gender identity. So that's about it.
So one of the steps in the first initial process of socially transitioning is choosing your name. And certainly there's a legal cost to that of doing it. But one of our students has a beautiful question of, how do you choose that name? Is it always based on the first letter of your dead name, or is it just something that you're drawn to? How do you choose that? Wow. And what's the cost in doing that? How long does it take?
Okay. I wasn't Mikaela out in Southern California. I just used that because that's my chosen name now. I've settled on that. Again, evolving. I did take a derivative of my dead name, which I'm proud to say was Michael. And I just looked at the feminine version of Michael. It was Michelle. So for, a good handful of years, I really went by Shelley, and I kind of liked that. I thought it was cute. I thought that kind of fit me. I still wanted to honor my parents naming me Michael. So I just used that variation. Mikaela is still very much the variation of Michael. Sounds a lot like it. My birth name given to me was Michael Allen. So I chose to use the middle name Lynn, as it flows with Mikaela Lynn. It almost sounds like Michael Allen, So I chose that. So it's a process again. Everything's such a process. But it is, and I've settled on Mikaela. I just thought I saw that name out there in the world. I'm thinking I'm more of a Mikaela than a Shelley, I think. So I'm going with Mikaela. So I stuck with Mikaela now for, a good 4 years. And I like it. I've settled on it. It suits me. It suits my personality. Find your personality, know your personality, and name yourself anything you want to. If you thought it was cute, if it was influenced by a favorite cartoon character, a favorite doll throughout your life, or, whatever it is, go for it, see if it suits you. If it doesn't, change it, but when it becomes the legal part, that's another part of this question. It is a process. It is filling out certain forms. You want to save up some money because it's rather expensive. The court cost could be about $300, and then the process that the courts have to go through to make sure that it's all legal and such. There's I believe that there's a notification. It has to be made public in your newspaper, and the newspaper will charge you yes, it is, they do charge you, and it could be rather expensive, but there are ways of having those expenses waived, adjusted. So I've been told, but the court cost, the court time it takes is sitting in front of a judge. The judge will say, okay, we can see no ill reason for you changing your name other than this is who you identify as, and the court will throw down the gavel and say, you are Mikaela Gavaletz. You go through the expense of getting your driver's license changed and your gender marker changed on your driver's license, which I've done recently, and your birth certificate. So that is a process, and it takes a little time and money, and it could cost you, upwards of $1,000, but in the long haul, it's well worth it. You got all your legal paperwork changed. You can now change your bank accounts, the title of your car, whatever it is. It's a time-consuming thing. So be prepared to spend a lot of time on this. It's not an overnight process.
I'll be honest. Like, we're just at step one of changing your name, which is the most basic gender expression thing you can do.
Yes.
And we're already at $1,000 basically, and a lot of time investment. That I genuinely didn't even look up the cost of being trans because I wanted this interview to be fresh to me. But that shocks me. Of just, we're not even halfway there yet, and we're already at way more than I thought it would be.
That's true. Now you're transitioning.
Yeah. How do you deal with people who might see you as impatient or rude when you correct them on your pronouns or your preferred name?
Well, people are, in my case, have been very apologetic every time they use my dead name or, use the wrong pronoun. It's a learning curve for them too, especially if they'd seen you, prior to your transition. Allow them to do that for a little while. Give them that padding. I did. And it makes everybody so much more comfortable, because it is, they feel like they're walking on eggshells with you now. They don't want to say anything wrong, but it slips. It's going to happen. It's happened to me 100 times. I just, brush it off my shoulders. It's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Do try to exercise a little, understanding and patience on your behalf too, because after all, you want them to understand you. So it's a give and take, that's the best advice I could offer.
I mean, you mentioned when someone names you as your dead name. Certainly, again, I don't know how that feels. So just for a second, can you walk me through what emotions go through your head when that kind of thing happens, when someone dead names you? How does that feel? How emotional do you get when you know that they can do better?
Well, I can't say that I'm unaffected by it. It does. It is a little bit of a jolt, and in as much as it's like, oh my God, who just heard you say that? Do you just outed me in front of people that I don't know? And that could be a dangerous thing. So yeah, there's concern. I would say I do get jolted. I'm not impervious to feeling that my dead name being used is hurtful. In a way they can do better. They can try, because although there are, in my case, there are women in the world who are named Michael. I realize that could be a fem name, but for me, it's not. I always related it to, the male that everybody throughout my whole life wanted me to be or expected me to be. So yeah, it is. It is a process, though. Understand that people are learning too, and it may slip. And you have a lot of people too that will immediately say, "Well, what do I call you? What's your name?" And so you tell them, and they may use a variation of that because they feel comfortable. Like some of my male cousins, although they love me and they accept me. They see me as Mick. Mikaela is Mick. So I'm like, I'm cool with that. That's all fine, So I'll allow people to have that flexibility in a way.
And have nicknames.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. So another great question we got on socially transitioning is, How do you socially transition with a transphobic family compared to an accepting family? Like, what are the differences there?
Okay. For me, I have to say that transitioning with a family who wasn't willing to accept my decisions, try to talk to them and say, express to them how much time in your life you've lived for them to satisfy them. And at the end of the day, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. We have to be happy with what we see in the mirror. Be true to yourself. Be ready for loss, because you're going to go through a grieving period. A feeling of loss of a son, or of a brother, or a loss of a sister who's now transitioning to a brother. It is a grieving process for them. Understand that. Be as compassionate to them as you expect them to be to you. That old saying, do unto others. For me, it was knowing that I could lose them, and coming to terms with that. And I wasn't far off the mark. I knew going into this for many, many, many years that there's a possibility that I'll lose somebody along the way. And I have. And it's sad, but then you hold out hope that they'll come around. Don't ever try to shove an issue down their throat. Let them take their time to wrap their head around it, to absorb it fully. And when they're ready to talk to you about it, they will. They will. I'm still going through that process with a couple people in my family.
Still not enough rainbows? Click here to see more weekly episodes of Powered by Rainbows, Semester 4, only on MHP TV.